views and opinions in the following program are those of the host and guests and do not reflect those of Ernest Smith or Ernest Smith Productions. This is ESP TV.
Good evening and welcome to ESP TV. My name is Karen Bryson and tonight my special guest is Anton Williams. Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, Miss Karen. How are you?
I want you to know that this man is so diverse and has been through so much in his life that I normally only have a bio of one of these little cue cards to talk from, but I have 4 of his so that in order for me to ask him questions and to interview him accordingly, and so that you all will not feel as if you're coming in the middle of a movie, I just have to give you more filler than I normally would. So sit back and I hope that you will enjoy the transformation, the honestness, the willingness to be forthcoming in everything that has happened in this man's life. So quickly, let me tell you about Anton Williams. He is a man actually who wears many hats. His formative years consisted of growing up in a nuclear family, as he's told me, consisting of his mother was 16 years old when she had him. So with him being the only grandchild and living in the house with his mother, there was also her parents, her grandparents, her great-grandparents, her mother's siblings, and him. So that made a family of 10. My gosh. If nothing else, there were a lot of people around to enjoy. Anton's father, from what I understand, he was not really in the picture as much, so at an early age, he and his mother moved to West Virginia, where it became apparent that she was unable to care for him, so she left him with some friends. Doesn't it sound like a movie already? At any rate, the friends ended up being foster parents for about 4 years. Even though it was a life afforded to him with at least parents in the household, it left a hole within him as far as frustration, anger, abandonment issues, so many things that when he went to school, he just didn't feel accepted for some reason or another, and he was in fights every single day. I guess that was a way to let out anger and frustration. And the emotions and the insecurities, that was nothing good. So the negative emotions turned into him being kicked out of elementary school, middle school, and the sadness is he never made it to high school because after repeating the 7th grade for 3 consecutive years, he decided to drop out. They had enrolled him in special ed classes, and this man, I can tell you for a fact, I'm sure he was not a stupid child or any of the other negative connotations you would have placed behind that, but you would have thought that either someone within the household or his teachers or his counselors would have seen through that or past that and said, look, we need to give him some help. But being a young black man, and we know how that is in society, and I'm not going to tell you how old he is, but even back then, I'm pretty sure that there was no one there to help at that time. Well, moving forward, after he dropped out of school, he decided to go into another area of expertise: robbing, selling drugs, and taking drugs. Now, does that not sound like what most young black men turn to when what is not available to them seems like the best thing to do? No. At any rate, he went to detention centers, he was in group homes, and lastly, he ended up at the big house on vacation for murder and robbery. Because at some point, something in his life, which we'll get into when I start asking questions, turned his life around. He found God, he found the Word, and he decided to do something with his life. And as he put it, Jehovah, as I call him, God, as he calls him, who is the same person, being, entity, came into his spirit and enlightened him to say that, look, your life is going to be a blank sheet of paper, and whatever you choose to write on it, however you choose to fill it, is what it's going to be. But I'll be right here by your side if you believe in me, believe that I will help you, and turn your life around. From there, they had him working as a chef, I guess you can call them chefs, in the prison kitchen. Now, with his anger issue management problems, why would you send this man to the kitchen with some cutlery? That would not have been my first choice to place him, but that's what they did. So evidently, there was something within you, in your spirit, that led them to believe that would be a good place to, a good fit for you.
Yes, ma'am.
He also went into plumbing and carpentry and what else do we have here? Barbering. So when he was released from prison, his first job was as a barber. This man has also gone into real estate, owns several properties in several different cities. We'll ask questions about that. He also graduated with a 4.0 GPA from Norfolk State University in, social work?
Social work, yes.
Yes, so he did do social work for a while, and while he's not doing that as a profession now, he still shares the word, shares encouragement, and a positive attitude to anyone who will listen, who will need him. This man has been an entrepreneur for 25 years.
Yes.
Is that not an accomplishment in itself? 25 years of being a better person. He has fathered 5 children, which I'll also ask him about. And this last incident, which landed him in jail, if he chooses to share that with us, we'll also get some insight into that. Now, for right now, I want you all to help me welcome Anton Williams. Mr. Williams, my gosh, I'm so excited that you're here with us.
Thank you so much.
And I know that you don't feel well, but you still managed to come, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me.
One of the first questions I want to ask you is, with so many immediate relatives and family members under one roof, and being the only grandchild there, how did you feel that you were denied the love and attention that you thought you needed?
Well, I think being the only child that, was in the house at that time, I'm not going to say that it was a bad situation. I think what really stuck out the most is that I was the only child, and the fact that my grandparents, they had a house where, my great-grandparents lived, and here it is, you have my aunt, my uncle, and my mother. We're all staying in one household, and I'm the only baby in the household. So, there were a lot of lonely days where, I wanted to go outside and play, but I got a lot of attention. But the thing that really, I think hurt the most is, when my mother, being 16, when she left the house, I was still being taken care of by my grandparents, but when my mother left the house, I think that's where the breakdown really began to hit me hard. You know what I'm saying? So, it got to a point where, as a child, I didn't have my father around, so, my mother, she decided to leave the house where we were all together and go out on her own. And you know, my grandparents didn't want me to go with her because they felt her lifestyle was not acceptable or good enough for me. But as a child, you know,
didn't understand
yeah,
that.
I didn't understand.
You
I just
wanted
wanted
your
to be.
mother.
I just wanted to be with my mother. So I took the journey. I remember at the age of 6, standing in a courtroom, and my grandfather was there, and the judge asked me, you know, because they were going through a custody battle, whether my
Who
grandparents,
you were going to stay with,
right?
yes.
Who you're going to stay with, whether it's with my grandmother or or do you want to stay with your mother?
Right.
So at that very early age, you know, I made the choice to be with my mom. I mean, and
Of course you did,
yeah,
yes.
I just wanted to be with her. You know, that was my baby, and I think that, you know, my mother, she had great intentions, but being a young parent,
Yes.
you know,
And
it
trying
kind
to
of
make things
yeah,
work.
trying to do
yes.
things the way she thought was best. And once we got on our journey, you know, she took me away from my family. We both went to West Virginia, as you mentioned before, and it seems like that's where the saga began.
The saga began.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I also mentioned about your teachers and everything in school, so were you considered just another little black boy that teachers failed and they didn't see that you needed extra help or extra attention, or did you not ask for maybe help because you were embarrassed because you weren't keeping up with the other students?
I can say that my teachers, when I was growing up, in grade school, you know, elementary, you know, I had a lot of insecurities.
Okay.
And those insecurities, you know, led to me not really believing in myself, you know. So when I went to school, I would see other children who, you know, it seemed like they comprehended faster, or, you know, when it was time to answer a question, they would get the question right, but the times that I would answer, I may get it wrong, but I'm embarrassed because, you know, they would laugh at me, or, you know, so that kind of prohibited me from wanting to ask questions again because I was embarrassed that I didn't know.
Right.
And I think that, you know, I remember times that, you know, I would be in class taking a test, and if I didn't know the answer, I would just circle anything just to complete the test without really thinking through it, because the pressure of feeling afraid to be wrong
Right.
just led me to do whatever, you know what I mean? So, you know, growing up in elementary, specifically West Virginia, I remember times of getting beat with wooden paddles. You
They
know,
did that back
yeah,
then.
back in the days, you know, I remember those days. And
See, you're trying to date yourself. I wasn't going to say how old you are.
yeah, but it's okay. But yeah, I remember the days, and I look back now, and I remember the white principals pulling my pants down, and
Really?
yeah, they would pull your pants down and you know, give you a smack on the butt, you know, and I'm talking about bare skin, and then some of them would make you pull down just enough till you could see your underwear. I remember those days, and you know, for me, it took a lot for me to cry. So, you know, when I would get you know, spankings by the principal, whether, you know, how severe your punishment was depending on how many licks you would get, you know. So it kind of made me bitter because I was being whipped at home, but then now I'm going to school
And being
I'm
whipped
being
there
whipped
as well.
again by the
Yeah.
people who were supposed to care. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, considering all of the other negative emotions that were brewing inside of you, what were some of the catalysts that caused you to want to fight every single day? What buttons were they pushing?
Well, you know, when you're broken, I mean, and I look back now, when I was a child, I internalized everything.
Okay.
You know, even the pain that my mother left me when she, you know, went to take care of her business from unfortunate circumstances that left me alone.
Right.
You know, it wasn't too many days that people saw me cry about it, but I was like the fish that's in a tank. And, you know, just imagine fish being inside of a fish tank, and you get a torch and you just light the bottom of the fish tank. You know, the water's boiling, You know, the water's getting hot.
Right.
The fish are swimming. You see them moving normal, but then here it is, you know, as the water begins to boil, the fish begin to cry out, but you can't hear the silent cry.
I like that, but that's so sad.
It's sad because most of the time I internalized things, and when they did come out, they came out very destructive. You know,
Okay.
it wasn't a balance. It was like, if you mess with me, you know, I gotta have you. You know,
Okay.
and I found myself in fights, you know, most of the time, you know, and middle school, elementary. I didn't make it to high school, but I was expelled from every middle school in Norfolk,
Oh my.
and to the place where they had to put me in Madison because you know, I just had behavior issues, you know.
Okay.
I didn't realize it until I was adult that I was intelligent. You know, because being in LD class, you know, the kids would joke you, you know, while other kids are focusing on arithmetic and reading and science. You know, we may do those things, but it may not be but 4 of us in a classroom.
Right.
You know, it was said to give us attention where, you know, the teacher could
Have that one-on-one
have
with
that
the
one-on-one
student.
experience.
Okay.
And yes, that was so. But at the same time, you know, you got kids that's walking past the door,
And
you
they're
know,
cruel.
and
Kids
they're
can be
very,
cruel.
they were very cruel. And you know, while most kids are outside, you know, having recess, you know, we had recess, but we'll be in class making donuts out of biscuits, or, you know, doing activities that was cool.
Okay.
But for me, I felt embarrassed because I wasn't around all the other kids. You know what I mean? So it made me kind of
withdrawn and introverted.
yeah, very. I wouldn't say introverted, because I was the type of person that even as a young kid, I realized that I had charisma. I
Okay.
attracted people around me, but it was for the wrong energy. You know what I'm saying?
So you did have friends then?
I did have friends, but the
Okay.
friends that I chose to have basically had the same energy that I had, and it
Oh,
wasn't
my.
good energy. You know, and a lot of us come from the same hood, so you know, most of us were fatherless. You know, most of us were being raised by single parents, and you know, honestly, I can't really think of too many dads that was in the neighborhood.
They were probably all in jail.
In
or
jail
out
or
somewhere
strung
else.
out on
Yes,
drugs.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, so the people that, you know,
could have
most
been
of my-
there as mentors and someone to look up to and a figure in the household to help guide and direct you.
right.
It wasn't there. It
It
wasn't,
wasn't
ready
there.
available.
So now the people that we choose to be our role models, to be our examples, or to be the kings that we desire to be, we look for drug dealers, we look for hustlers. You know, I remember growing up on the streets of Church Street in Norfolk, and you know, my grandparents, they owned a restaurant on Church Street many years ago called Hunter's Grill, and Hunter's Grill was a place where you know, all the stars would come: Duke Ellington, B.B. King. You know, my great grandparents were very good with cooking. You know,
Okay.
and they serviced Church Street. And if you know anything about Church Street in Norfolk, it was called Harlem of the South. You know, and that was the term that was coined. That term was coined to basically because we invited all the arts to the area, the Addicts Theater. You know, this is
Absolutely,
where the
yes.
entertainment was. So Norfolk was like the Mecca, you know, for
Okay.
this area. So we had a lot of entertainment and things like that. So, you know, I look back on my history, look at my family, you know, and I have a lot to be proud of because,
Yes.
you know, a lot of people don't have family. So
This is
even
true.
with the family that I have, no matter how dysfunctional we may be, you know, I'm grateful because, you know, like I said, as a child, I would, you know, be on Church Street, but Church Street was full of pimps and hustlers and
Okay.
prostitutes, and you know, and this is a lifestyle that I
That
saw.
life, yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So the people that I gravitated towards, because I didn't have any positive real male role models that I chose to gravitate towards, you know, I found it in the streets. You know what I mean?
Which is
So,
natural, yes,
yeah.
during those times. Okay. Were you sent to the group home or detention centers by your mother or by your foster parents, the people that raised you for 4 years?
Well, see, the parents that I had in West Virginia, and God bless Mother Jean. I call her Mother Jean because she stepped in as a mother to take care of me while my mother was, going through her challenges. So, I thank God for her, because if it wasn't for her, no matter how dire the situation may have been, I think God provided a ram in the bush for me.
Okay.
So, I try to look at things through the lens that things could always be worse,
Absolutely.
So it puts me at a place where I always look at things from a critical perspective. I try not to be biased and just think one way. I'm always, analyzing myself to make sure that, I put myself in check, because like I said, I could have been worse off than what I was. But still, even in those circumstances, I found my way. But I was alone. You know what I'm saying? So, but I just, look at my life now, and I don't regret none of the experiences.
Because you wouldn't be who you are today.
I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for every negative experience.
But can you honestly say that had your life been different and on a different track, that more things would have been afforded to you and your life would have changed and been different?
You know what? I can't even say that, because I know a lot of good people, no matter how good they were, have experienced bad things.
This is true.
I don't care how good you raise your children or how you may expect them to be. Life will bring you many hills and valleys that you cannot avoid.
Right.
And I say that because here it is, I'm a counselor. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work. Thank God I finished with honors. I had the credentials where, I developed the interpersonal skills to be able to connect with people. And, I chose social work because I wanted to give back to the community from which I came.
Right.
And here it is now, I'm in families, I'm in the family system counseling children.
Okay.
But here it is, I got to connect with the mom, I got to connect with the sister, I got to connect with the community, I got to connect with the schools. You have all of these different systems that are affecting this child.
Because it's a nucleus and it all connects.
Everything connects. But this was the conflict, because as a counselor and as someone who's someone who cares about the well-being of others, I found myself becoming so enmeshed with the population that I was serving. Why? Because I was him.
Yeah, you could see that.
I could see me. So here it is, I take the work home every day. But this is the straw that broke the camel's back. The same families that I counsel and who was on the verge of destruction.
Right.
I'm counseling families, but my family is on the brink of destruction.
Well, as Jesus couldn't be seen as the Savior in his own community where he grew up, I'm not equating you with Jesus, but I'm just using that as an analogy.
Yeah, I understand.
It's kind of hard to be great within your own family because they grew up with you or
That's
whatever
right.
they know you.
They
And
don't
they say,
respect
oh,
you the
that's
same.
that's, little Anton. We remember when he did this, that, and the other. They don't see where you have gone from this level and progressed to this level.
Yes, ma'am.
And
You're
grown
right.
beyond that.
Yes, you're right.
So I definitely see that. And I hope the listening audience is catching some of these gems that he's telling you, because everyone has some type of issue, whether they want to admit it or not, that will keep you from developing and moving forward in your life if you don't have the proper positive nucleus around you, or someone you can turn to, or someone you can even talk to.
Yes.
And even though Anton did not have it, he was able to learn from that, go to school, graduate with honors, and be able to give that back so that he could help somebody else. My goodness.
Yes, ma'am.
Before all of the good things occurred in your life, please explain to me how you thought robbery and murder was a good idea.
Well, I guess the only way that I can say it is this. You know, the bed you make, you lay in it. And, you know, once my mother, I was fortunate enough to be removed from the foster care circumstance that I was in West Virginia to come back home with my family here.
Okay.
Who I was with before I went to West Virginia with my mother.
Right.
My aunt and uncle, you know, they took me in. Thank God for my Aunt Donna and my Uncle Alan, because they were gracious to me to open up their home. They took care of me as if I was their own son. And, you know, when I came back here, I was the child that they never knew. I left early at the age of 6, but when I came back,
You were a whole different person.
I was a whole different person. So now little Anton is
Little Anton.
little Anton, but I'm
You're
for real,
terror
for real. I
now.
got Chucky running around inside of, you know, running around inside of me.
My
So,
gosh.
but it's silent.
Mm.
It's silent. You can't hear the cry. You know,
Were they afraid of you, or you just didn't
Well,
say anything to anyone?
I just didn't say anything because it was more painful for me to talk about it, but it was more comforting to me to just be silent. But the
How is
silence,
that?
because, you know, a lot of times when you talk about things, you really relive the pain.
But isn't it a sort of purging of that pain if you
If-
talk about it?
It is. I think learning how to talk is the greatest tool that most people can utilize when it comes to healing, deliverance, you know, when it comes to, you know, getting to the root of every problem that's going on within you.
Right.
You have to talk about it.
Yes.
But I'm saying that I understood that it would probably have been best for me to talk, but you got to realize that I have been programmed for these years when the gap between 6 and 10, where I'm most impressionable,
Right.
I was facing a lot of trauma.
Yes.
So the trauma led me to back up against the wall, and I couldn't talk. It was like really a muzzle was over my mouth.
Oh my.
And I internalized it, but then when I shook the muzzle off, it came out rah, you know what I'm saying? It came out like a lion. And so my words, you know, I was always careful with my words, and
Okay.
you know, and how I beat people down with my words. That was not what I characterized myself by. But if you're talking about fighting, you know, I would tell anybody, you either gonna whip my hind parts and I'm gonna whip yours, but we getting ready to go. You know, but you know, that's just, you know, as a child, you know, growing up, you know, my aunt and uncle, they didn't understand, why are you fighting so much, or, you know, why are you so angry, you know, why are you crying, you know, but never saying nothing.
Wow.
You know, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate how you know, how you let me go, or I don't appreciate how you did.
They didn't let you go. It was your choice, and I can't believe the
Yeah.
system at that age allowed
Gave me
you
the choice.
Yes.
Right, but see, you know, the system is not just.
No.
And I will say it over and over again to anybody that's listening. You know, the legal system is not just.
No, it isn't.
And you know, all my life I've had to fight many battles, and you know, I've overcame a lot, you know, in my life in order to become the man I am. But guess what? I'm still overcoming today. So, you know, I just basically encourage anybody that, you know, if you're struggling with something and you really don't know how to get to the bottom of it, you know, and you're trying to continue to move forward, you know, and make progress in your life, I would encourage you to stop. Instead of going forward, take a step and go backwards. Take a minute to reflect. You know, what I've learned to do in my life, Miss Karen, and it helps me when I'm in trouble and I'm faced with something difficult, you know, and I say, God, you know, I need your help right now, you know, just to give me peace. And God said to me in my spirit that, you know, instead of you trying to go forward, I need you to just go backwards for a minute. Let me take you back, and then I'm going to bring you forward.
Right.
Let me take you back to 6 when you were going through the custody battle, you know,
To help you to understand.
To help you understand
Yeah.
that at 6, or, you know, when you were abused, or, you know, when you were physically abused or mentally abused, you know, I was with you.
You just didn't have those tools in real life and
To know how to work right.
Yes.
But God say, look, but I want you to look at the memorials that I've placed in your life. You know, I want you to look at this, how you overcame this situation, how you overcame that situation, and how you overcome this situation.
Yes.
So before you know it, by the time I get to the present, the tears would begin to flow, because I realized that, God, no matter what I've gone through,
Yes.
you've been with me every step of the way. So I encourage people to say, man, I'm trying to move forward, man. I say, you know, have you first taken a step backwards?
And you have to find that peace and be quiet and listen.
And that's the key, you know, and that's, you know, I always, I share the story that is most impactful to me sometimes when it comes to the Word of God, is the story of Jacob.
Okay.
How Jacob, the Bible speaks of Jacob in the book of Genesis, and it talks about how Jacob had beat Esau out of his birthright.
Right, yes.
Sold
he
him
was
a bowl of soup.
shyster and
Yeah.
liar.
Yeah, liar,
trickster.
cheater, trickster. He was everything.
Yeah.
And he ran from his brother Esau because he was afraid that Esau would take his life.
Right.
And he spent this time away, but after so many years, 20-some years, the Lord had spoke to him, and he wanted him to make things right. And he made his mind up, gathered his family together, and they started a caravan, and they began to walk in the wilderness. And on his way back, he put his family first, you know what I'm saying, and he stood in the back. But while the caravan was moving forward, he stayed further back with the rest of the group while they went forward, and God said, now I got you alone. You remember the story when he wrestled with God?
Yeah.
The Bible says
Now
how he wrestled
with
an angel.
Yes.
Yes. So, you know, what I'm learning is that, you know, never underestimate what God will allow you to go through just to get you alone to wrestle with you.
Yes.
And some of the things that you go through, they may be crippling. Because if you remember, Jacob wrestled with the angel
Till
all
morning.
night till morning time, and the angel had to strike his hip.
Well, he said he told him he wasn't going to let him go until he blessed him.
I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. So God blessed him. The angel, you know, blessed him. And he changed his name from Jacob to now Israel.
Yeah.
So, you know, I said all that to say this, that my wilderness experience was, it began in West Virginia. And as I look back now, I don't have any regrets about that, even though if I could change things, you know, quite naturally I would, but history has already been made.
Yes, it has.
And, you know, I was alone for a reason. And the way God deals with each and every person is different.
Absolutely.
And the way that God has always dealt with me, he'll always find a way to get me alone and pull me away from the crowd.
Saying that, let me ask you about the times that you were in the system. You would have thought, though, considering how men of color and boys of color are treated within the system, that with everything you were going through, it would have just made you tougher and more angry and vengeful and wanting to continue to go along that path. At what point did you finally realize, because we did mention that earlier, when God said, you know, you have a clean slate here.
Yes.
What occurred in your life to make you want to make that change? How low had you finally gotten? You were already in jail.
Yeah. Well, see, what led to me, first let me talk about what led to me going to jail the first time.
Okay.
You know, I had been to jail many times, as a juvenile, detention home, group home, and then finally jail.
Okay.
You know, I was in jail at the age of 15 with 10 years.
You were in the adult system?
I was in the adult system. They certified me as an
gosh.
adult at the age of 15.
And they only do that to young black boys.
And listen, That's all that's in the penal systems right now. If you go in a jail block right now, you may find 95% African Americans and blacks, and you may find 5% others. It's horrible, you know.
It really is.
You know, I said all that to say this, that the lifestyle that I was living, you know, growing up as a kid, it wasn't right, but that's what I knew. You know, I started cooking up cocaine when I was 13 years old. You know, 13, 14.
My gosh.
I'm being taught by my peers. Like I said, I didn't have a father, so the people that I felt like I could emulate were the hustlers. You know, I wanted money. I come up from the hood. I'm poor. You know, my mom, she working, you know, but at the same time, she can't give me the things that I like, you know. I mean, it got to the point that as a teenager, what I like, if I couldn't get somebody to give me the money to get it, I would go take it off your clothesline. I'd take it from you. Oh man, if I didn't have clean socks, or you know, I remember the days, you know, going past people clothes when people hung out clothes on the line.
I remember doing that too,
yeah,
back in not stealing them, but hanging the clothes.
Right,
You had to hang out.
Yeah, but I remember stealing people clothes off
My
the line because I was
goodness.
unfortunate to have my own, you know, and that led me to, you know, at the age of 14, you know, I was selling marijuana, selling, you know, small cocaine. You know, I was using drugs at the age of 14, 15. I think I started out smoking marijuana, then marijuana led to, you know, lacing my my weed with, you know, with cocaine. You know, I tried snorting heroin.
Good grief.
You know, and I grew up in an environment where my house was, you know, basically the drug house. You know, I grew up in a house where, you know, I watched people shoot dope in their arms and passed out in my house. You know, I'm peeking through the peephole, seeing people, you know, just banging. You know, and that's a term for shooting up, but you know, how the blood running all, squirting out of the needles. You know, I seen all of those things. You know, I seen, you know, myself looking out the back seat of a car, you know, while we're going to score drugs while I'm with my mother. You know, I seen those days, and as a kid, you know, I just want to be with my mother.
Yeah.
You know, so it came to a point where, you know, you mentioned earlier about me dropping out of school. I finished the 6th grade. I didn't get a chance to finish the 7th grade. And my mother realized that my behavior was just so out of character that she couldn't control me. So it got to the point where I was selling drugs. She knew it. And her lifestyle was basically, you know, in the same lane that I was in.
Right.
So she would tell me all the time, you know, it's nothing you got to hide from me. You know what I mean? If you're going to be out here on the streets, I'd rather for you to be here doing it than for you to be out in the streets and somebody have to tell me. So, you know, my mother was my mother, but at the same time, she was, you know, my enabler too. You know what I mean? So I'm cutting kilos of cocaine in my house. You know, my house became the drug house. You know what I mean? So, you know, and like I said, this is no mark on my mother. I'm talking about my life story. So she's a part of it. Absolutely. You know what I mean? But today I can say that she's a great woman. She's overcame her struggle. She's been clean and strong now for the last 20 or so years, and hasn't looked back. You know, she didn't have to go to rehab. She didn't have to do none of those things that traditional means of therapy say that you must do to get clean. She used her constitution, and she made her mind up. She was going to serve God and give God her life, and since then she's changed. Yeah, he made it happen.
And I want the listening audience to realize that in no way, shape, or form did he glorify what he did or say that it was the correct thing to do to make and sell drugs. He's telling you the circumstances and what occurred to lead him to that avocation. So that is not the way to go, just to make quick money because it looks good on movies and in TV, and you may see it on your street corner or wherever else. That is not the way to go, because that kind of life can lead to other things that you do not want to be a part of.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's move past that, and I want to ask you, before we get into some of the other things that you've accomplished, when you went to Norfolk State, you could have majored in anything. Why social work?
Well, I chose social work because when I was in prison, I remember signing up for college courses in prison. I'm thankful that, you know, I was able to go to college in prison, because today they can't. You know, they have it now where, you know, inmates can't even get Pell Grants because Governor Allen cut it out in 1995.
Wow.
But during that time that I was incarcerated, you know, you can get a degree right there while you're doing time. And some colleges still offer correspondence courses where inmates can.
And they are accredited.
And some of them are accredited.
Okay.
So, you know, I just thank God that during that time, you know, as you mentioned earlier, that my life was like a blank sheet of paper.
Okay.
And the true catalyst that, you know, I can say that I can give credit to any change in my life is Jesus Christ, my Lord. And, you know, when I made the decision to make him Lord of my life, he did the changing. You know, he gave me the vision. He gave me the motivation to become what I am today. And, you know, out of that, that's where the inspiration began, because I had to take a GED class before I even started to go to college.
Right.
So here it is, I'm a 6th grade dropout. I literally had to learn how to read. I had to learn how to do basic arithmetic, you know, social studies, science. I had to learn the basics, because the things that I was supposed to prepare myself for high school,
You weren't afforded that. You never even got to that
I
level.
never even got to that level. You know what I mean? So a lot of things I was behind on, and it made me feel ashamed. So I was a self-learner. You know,
Okay.
I read books, and, you know, during my time of incarceration, I read many books, hundreds of books. And, you know, that's when I discovered the lights clicked on, and I said, okay, you know, you're not LD, learning disabled. You do
Right.
have a purpose. You know, you
That
are
light bulb. We all need that
smart.
light bulb.
Right. You know, and when the light bulb clicked on, Miss Karen, it was the most liberating thing for me, because God said, now I'm going to leave it up to you to fill in the blanks.
Right.
So that inspiration gave me the desire to want to do everything, because everything that I was doing was turning to gold. You know, I got my GED, I got my plumbing trade, I started cutting hair. You know, I had my first job, but my
Right.
first job, you know, to some people, you know, you may not jump for joy, but for me, coming off the streets, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'm working for 27 cents an hour.
See, and you all complaining about $12 an hour.
27 cents an
27
hour.
cents.
And you know, and actually I was a good worker, and I was able to have my pay increase where I was making 85 cents an hour.
All
So,
right, you were just a
Yeah,
cow.
yeah,
cash cow there.
you know, I did my very best at what I do, and I think that I'm a great barber till today. But you know, I've learned in life that it's very easy to complain.
Yeah.
You know, but I also learned in life that godliness with contentment is great gain.
Absolutely.
So I live my life and characterize my life behind humility. You know, and you know, because I realized the things that I was living for before, you know, it only brought destruction. You know, the fast money. If you young guys are out there and, you know, you thinking that, you know, you're gonna get in the game and get out, you know, it's really no quick outs.
Right.
You know, it's really, the only end is destruction. The Bible says that there's a way that seems right to a man, but the ends thereof is the way of death. So, you know, I would encourage you just to, you know, make sure you take time to choose your shots carefully. And even you know, I'm almost, she didn't tell my age.
I'm
but
not gonna do that to you.
But I'm almost a grown man, and but I've learned that in my experience, you know, you must stay humble. You know,
Yes.
because humility is what brings about great exaltation. And you know, as a grown man today, you know, I'm still learning lessons, and no matter how
We
long
grow
I've been saved,
every day, yes,
you
we
know,
grow
and
every
think
day.
that sometimes I may have it together. You know, you can't give the enemy no place, because the moment you give him place, and that's the moment where he'll come in and snatch the life out of you.
Absolutely.
If you aren't careful. And that's what happened to me. You know, Miss Karen, I had started using drugs at the age of, like I said, 14 and 15. And I began to rob everybody, even my best friends. And,
oh my gosh.
yeah, no, I'm talking about guys I grew up with every day. They would give me drugs and I would just take it and wouldn't pay them. I would, stick up some people that knew me and walk around like it was okay. And
but that was your mindset, and that was the life you were doing then.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to move on from that because we don't have a whole lot of time left. But I do want to get to some other areas of things that you have done.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that even learning to cook and barbering, you also obtained plumbing skills.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that while you were in the system as well?
Yes. I got.
Okay.
I have obtained 3 things that are most valuable to me, and that's the ability to cut hair.
Mm-hmm.
I am a certified plumber.
Wow.
And
construction. You build houses
Yeah,
and refurbish houses.
Yes.
This man is a jack of all trades. So if you need someone, we're going to tell you, but before we sign off this evening, how you can get in touch with him for whatever, if you plumbing, for social work, if you need some encouragement and wisdom and enlightenment, he'll be there for you. Barbering, he's an excellent barber. I've seen some of the people that he's cut. It's like, wow.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate the compliment.
So moving on to that real estate.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get into real estate, buying and refurbishing
buying,
houses so
yes.
that you could rent them out or whatever your purpose was? And
Yeah. Well, I had great aspirations even as a young adult to own real estate from what I've seen others do. I realized that it was one of the most powerful entities or business opportunities that any man could possess.
Right.
On the face of this earth. God told us to subdue the land. Take it over. You know what I mean? So, and my desire to become wealthy, and I'm not talking about riches. I'm talking about wealth, meaning that I have more than enough for me and for those around me. I just don't want money.
Which is what we're supposed to do.
That's right. I just don't want money for me, but I want to be in a position where I can bless other people. So, but I just believe that if we give each other the opportunity to look inside each other, I think that we as a community, we as a colored people, I think that we can begin to grow and become a strong, powerful force. And this has nothing to do with, racism or anything. I'm just, I'm from the inner city. I'm from the hood. So, it's only right that you give back. I was just telling one of my friends, I was exercising the other day and I was taking a run. I ran from downtown Norfolk all the way to Military Circle Mall. And it was like, man, you really ran that far? I said, yes, I did. I said, in order to do something you haven't done before,
you have to do it. Start somewhere.
You have to do something you haven't done before.
Yeah.
So, I challenge myself and I challenge everybody around me, let's be great, but let's be great together. To divided we fall, together we stand. No man is an island to himself.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
But yes, I just want to make it clear that, I am truly grateful for every experience, that I've encountered, both good and bad.
Knowing what you know now about yourself, if there was an opportunity, you could stay you, but to go back and tell that little 6-year-old boy something, what would you tell him?
If I could go back and tell that 6-year-old little boy something, what would I say? I would probably tell him learn to love yourself. Learn to love yourself in a powerful way, because when you love yourself, then and only then are you capable of loving someone else. But you first have to love you. And so many times in life, you know, and I remember talking to people, you know, quite naturally being a counselor, you know, I own a barbershop, so, you know, God is, I'm not working in the field of social work, but my platform I get on every day. I have the beauty of being able to touch and lay hands on people every day. I get a chance to counsel people one-on-one every day. And the thing that, you know, matters to me the most is not just the physical touch that I give people. Right. I give them an outlet. I give them an opportunity.
Yes.
You know, to be one-on-one, to vent, to be transparent. You know, because a lot of people aren't like that. You know, you got so many people that want to be strong, not understanding that the way to be strong is showing how weak you are.
Yeah.
Do you remember the scripture that God inspired Paul to write in, I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9? When Paul had a thorn in his flesh.
Oh, yeah.
And a messenger of Satan came to buffet him.
Yes.
And Paul said, Jesus said to him, Paul, my grace
is sufficient.
It's sufficient. It's more than enough.
Yes.
Because my strength is made perfect in your weakness.
Yes.
So, you know, for me, I don't get down when I fail. Because my failure is only an opportunity to rise up and do it again better.
And to learn from it, yes.
To learn from it and grow, you know. So, the only thing that I would say is that, you know, looking back, if I could say something to that little dude, you know, and I got a picture that I just looked at the other day when I was that age.
Wow.
And when I looked at him, it almost brought tears in my eyes because I could remember the same pain I felt when I was that age. When I would go to the football games, when I would go to the basketball games, and I was a very good athlete.
Okay.
You know, I could play basketball. I was an all-star in baseball. I played football, running back, quarterback, you know, safety. I was very good, you know, short, but, you know, I mean.
But I'm thinking all of those things you were capable of doing, but yet you still chose another. You were allowing Satan and his minions to control you as opposed to seeing the goodness that was already in that light that you already had.
Yes, I did. I chose Satan. And I didn't do it intentionally, but at the same time, the course of my life, if you aren't a Christian, and even if you are a Christian or a believer, however you want to categorize it,
you can still let him in.
You can still let him in, and he gonna come in all the way. Yeah. He ain't playing no middle ground.
No.
So, you know, I just, you know, for me, I had to realize that the life of the streets was, you know, only leading to destruction, you know.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
when it got to the point where I'm robbing my friends and kicking in people's houses, tying them up, putting them in trunks, and
Are you serious?
No.
You were a gangster for real, weren't you?
Yeah, well, you know, I live that lifestyle, but you know, you live by the gun, you die by the gun too.
This is true.
So, you know, my last, well, not last, but the incidents that, you know, led me to prison, you know, I end up, you know, sticking up a drug house. You know, I had my couple of guys with me to make sure that if I stuck the house up, wouldn't nobody come out shooting, or if I ain't out by a certain time, come in shooting. You know, it just so happened I got away with the robbery, but I end up going around the same neighborhood 2 days later, and the guys remembered who I was. And it started a physical confrontation. The physical confrontation led to me going home, get a gun, and I came back and shot the guy cold blood.
And you thought that was the
And I
correct
thought
thing to
that
do
was
because
the-
of the life you were leading then.
Right. And see,
Okay.
you know, he had pistol whipped me and sliced my eye open and
Okay.
slapped me with the gun and chipped my tooth. So, you know, quite naturally internalized anger. How do I bring it?
Retaliate.
Right. I had to retaliate because, for me, didn't want to consider myself as being weak.
Right.
I had to get you, But today, I'm thankful that I've learned,
that is not
self-control,
the answer.
right, in that area. And but listen, I'm gonna be honest that I've been in some situation where I've been pushed and I thought I could do it again.
Well, every time you try to get out, something tries to draw
That's
you
right.
back in.
That's right.
So it's your strength and your belief that keeps you sane.
That's right.
The last thing I want to discuss real quick before we have to sign off here, we have a few more minutes,
Yes,
is the fact that Anton has 5 children. What type of father are you to them that you didn't get while you were growing up? What have you instilled in them?
Well, the thing that I instill in my kids, as a father, I think that I'm very transparent with them. I allow them to see my love. I allow them to see, my pain.
Mm-hmm.
I allow them to see my ups. I allow them to see my downs. And I remind them constantly, I'm thankful that God used me to have you.
Okay.
But I'm really just your steward. Because ultimately you belong to God.
So the mistakes that they make, you can help them, because I'm sure a lot of things, these little sneaky things, kids will do this.
That's right. But it's like this, I have learned to use wisdom and be tactful in how I how I approach my children, because I want to make sure that they're strong enough to make decisions on their own, but just knowing that I got their back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To help facilitate the process, but I want them to learn from me, even through my failures. Learn by my example. Don't learn by, feeling like you got to eat just to learn everything. No, you can learn that that's hot by me telling you it's hot. You don't have to touch that. You know what I'm saying? So most people don't know it. I had a setback where I ended up getting incarcerated. This is not 25-30 years ago out of my when I was incarcerated for murder, and robbing people. But recently, I'm talking about recently, I just overcame a challenge, where I sat in jail for 2 years trying to overcome a rape charge. And, it's a very interesting story, but it's like, I knew that I was putting myself under an umbrella, that I knew it was no safety. But I didn't listen to my intuition and the voice of God before I walked down the journey that I was walking down. And God gave me a way of escape. You know how the Bible, if you read the Bible, it says that there is no temptation that is taking you but such as common to man.
Right.
But God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted
without giving you a way.
Without giving you a way of escape, and He'll make sure you're able to bear it. So, I blame myself because, I grew up being a womanizer. I grew up, running ladies,
doing what you saw other people do,
doing what
you
I
thought
saw
was appropriate.
Doing what I saw was appropriate because, as I said before, I grew up around pimps, hustlers, drug dealers, and, to have 2 women, that was common. You know what I mean? Or, to just run women, that was common. That was like the cool thing to do. So I learned to do that at a very early age, but what it afforded me, and I can look back in my life, most of my troubles have been behind women. And I don't say that to disrespect any women out there who are listening to this cast, but what I am going to say is that, I don't have any reason to, rape anybody or, I think that's the least of my problem. I think that what I can say is this, that too much of anything can lead to destruction. And I think that because of the fact that I was so careless, I didn't listen to the voice of reason. And I ended up going out with a young lady sitting at a bar. We got drunk, took her home. I made a lot of promises that I couldn't fulfill. She didn't like it. The next day I never heard from her. 30 days later, you know what I'm saying? I'm in question about somebody saying that I raped them. So I ended up getting arrested, and I spent 2 years in jail.
For a charge that wasn't
right,
true.
for a charge that wasn't true. And you know, I had to you know, deal with COVID. I caught COVID while I was in jail. I mean, it was horrible, you know. And my point that I'm making before we close is that, you know, I understood why I was there, because I understood my life, and I understood how God has always dealt with me. He's always allowed me to have my Jacob experience, where he pulls me away from family, pulls me away from the friends. The girlfriend that I thought I had, she left. Or, you know, the people that I thought would support me, they left.
Right.
Now, people that look at your character, now they talking about you. The streets are your name ringing bells, and, you know, you can't get your mouth out of other people's, I mean, your name out of other people's mouths. And, you know, now you got this stigma attached to you. And I'm like, God, how did I get here? And God,
When you were here, that brought you there, because people want to remember everything from
everything
back here
from your
instead
past.
of here.
Right. So all the good you do,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. People only pay attention to the one mistake you can make.
Absolutely.
so-
And before we close now, and I'm sorry to have to cut you off
That's not a problem.
because we are live and we have an airtime.
Yes, ma'am.
Give our listening audience, if you would like, a way that they can contact you for any of those services that you provide.
Okay, that's fine. Well, once again, my name is Anton Williams. I'm thankful to be able to share my experiences. There's so many things that I have to say, but I'm just so grateful for Miss Karen and Mr. Ernest taking their time to allow me to interview them. You know, if I could say anything to you, you know, stay focused, stay encouraged, and I can be reached at 757-816-8929. That's my cell number. My business is Unique Creations Barbershop, and my construction company is Ant Construction and Management Corp. And you can reach me at that 816 number, and I look forward to serving you in any capacity that you allow me. Thank you very much.
Anton, thank you so much for being here. Today's subject matter was I Am More Than My Past. This has been ESP TV. My name is Karen Bryson, and as always, be a blessing to at least one other person each day. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so